Good morning dear students, welcome to the class. Today's topic of the class is suicide by Emile Durkheim. So, Emile Durkheim, he wrote the book Suicide in the year 1897. Here, we'll discuss the theoretical analysis or the concepts explained by Emile Durkheim in his book. So, before discussing the different types of the topic given by Emile Durkheim, we need to know what is suicide. So, according to him, suicide is a result directly or indirectly committed by an individual for his or her positive or negative action even after knowing the result of it. Okay? And according to Emile Durkheim, suicide can be understood or need to be understood in a sociological perspective. Many other social thinkers try to explain suicide as a psychological or pathological. Contrasting to that concept, Emile Durkheim tried to explain suicide as a social fact or sui generis. According to him, suicide is very normal in the society. So, we need to understand suicide outside from the individual manifestation of it, and we need to understand it as a social fact which is very external to the society or to an individual. Related to that, Emile Durkheim tried to make us understand the different factors of the suicide. According to Emile Durkheim, suicide has the relation with the division of labor and also the social constraint. And I have given here in the point. According to him, when there is a huge gap of the division of labor in a society, suicide may occur. Again, social constraint is another factor of the suicide. When there is so much of constraint on an individual, wider society or in a society, suicide may take place. Moreover, suicide also has the relation or link with the social institution, okay, and the individual. So, the significance of understanding suicide here by the Emile Durkheim is that we need to understand suicide in a sociological perspective, not in a psychological perspective. Sometimes what happens if one individual or any circumstances of suicide happens in a society, what we think is because of the madness or maybe because of the personal problem, the person is committing so, which is not true according to Emile Durkheim. Okay, now we are moving towards the different types of the suicides given by Emile Durkheim. So, in this slide, we will try to understand the two key dimensions of the understanding suicide given by Emile Durkheim. According to him, the two key dimensions of suicide is social integration and social regulation. So, here you can see the social integration. Integration refers to the participation of an individual that is expected by the society, okay, in a group or as a person. Again, social regulation means rules and regulation that is imposed by the society upon an individual. So, if the regulation is too strong or if regulation is too loose, it may hamper into the suicide. So, depending on these two key dimensions, we can understand the four types of these suicides. Concerning with the social integration, we can find two types of these suicides. These are egoistic suicide and altruistic suicide. Okay, so egoistic and altruistic, it concerned with the social integration. If there is lack of the social integration or the integration is very loose, egoistic suicide may take place. Or on the other hand, if the social integration is too high, okay, so the altruistic suicide may take place. Okay, again, these two anomic and fatalistic suicide may take place because of the social regulation. When the rules and regulation of the society is lacking or very less, or there is a breakdown of the rules and regulation in the society, the anomic suicide may take place. Okay? So, while the rules and regulation of the society is too high or over-regulation, in that case fatalistic suicide may take place. So, now we will discuss all these types of the suicide in a further detail in the next slide. The first type of the suicide that we are going to discuss now is egoistic suicide. So, what is an egoistic suicide? Egoistic suicide takes place because of the detachment of an individual with the society. When an individual feels lonely, okay, without any emotional support, then egoistic suicide may take place. This happens because of the lack of social integration, as we already have discussed in the previous slide also. So, example of the egoistic suicides are committed by the self-centered person, or because of the conflict in the market economy, or it may take place in the modern society where the face-to-face or close relation, the value of the close relationship and face-to-face relationship lacks. Okay? And apart from that, Emile Durkheim tried to explain us the suicide committed by the Christians. Among the Christians, the rate of the suicide is high among the Protestants, okay, in comparison to the Catholics. So, according to Emile Durkheim, from the study or from the data that he has collected, Protestants always believe in the more work, okay, more focus in the work, capital generation, as it is also explained by the Max Weber in the Protestant Ethics and the Spirit of Capitalism. So, in that context, they do not have much time to mingle around with the other outside community or outside of their zone. So, it may result to the detachment, okay, because of the more focus in the work. So, that may ultimately result to the egoistic suicide. Okay, got it? So, now next type of the suicide, that is altruistic suicide. The meaning of the altruistic means sacrifice. So, this occurs because of the over integration, high integration of an individual with the society, with the community member or the fellow members. Okay. So, we have a different three subtypes of the altruistic suicide that we are going to discuss in the next slide. This kind of the suicide basically found in the primitive society, as it is said by Emile Durkheim. Okay. So, the example of the altruistic suicides are many. So, here I have given the example of the sati and example of the military people, those who sacrifice their life for the sake of their country, for the sake of their society. So, let us go to the sub three types of the altruistic suicide in the next slide. So, these are the three different types of the altruistic suicide. The first one is obligatory altruistic suicide, the next one is optional altruistic suicide, and the third one is acute altruistic suicide. So, now we need to know what is an obligatory altruistic suicide. So, obligatory means it is a duty, obligation, there is no choice rather than doing that. Okay? This is obligatory. So, when an individual or a person commits suicide because of the duty or because of the obligation, it is called as obligatory altruistic suicide. So, example of the obligatory altruistic suicide we have here as a sati pratha, which was found in the primitive society. It does not exist now, but we can remember the 19th century social reformer who tried to reform this type of the evil practices. Okay? So, sati pratha can be considered as the obligatory altruistic suicide. When at the time of the death of the husband, the wife sacrificed their life to honor to the society or community. Okay? Now, next one is optional altruistic suicide. Optional altruistic suicide is based on the individual choice. It is completely optional. That is not an obligatory or duty. If you feel so doing or committing that, then you can go for. Like simple example we can take here, the commitment of the doctor during the corona outbreak. Okay, it is a completely individual choice. There is not a hard and fast rule like obligatory in the optional altruistic suicide. The last one of the altruistic suicide is acute altruistic suicide. So here in the acute altruistic suicide, an individual may sacrifice his or her life because of the happiness in doing that. Okay, the person feel proud after doing that, okay, to honor, okay, because of the happiness, because of the joy of individual by sacrificing their own life. So the example of the acute altruistic suicide, we can find sacrifice of soldiers for the country, and yeah, when the soldiers sacrifice their life for the sake of their country, it can be given as an example of acute altruistic suicide. Okay. So let's move on to the another type, that is anomic suicide. So the term anomy is first of all given by Emile Durkheim. Okay, according to Emile Durkheim, anomy means normlessness. When society becomes disequilibrium, imbalance without any rules and regulation, when there is a total breakdown of the rules and regulation, that stage is known as normlessness. So this anomic suicide is connected with the normlessness. Okay, if such situation occurs, a person may commit suicide. For example, when an individual is facing bankruptcy, okay, going through such kind of the situation where there is no choice rather than dying, or there is not getting any help, it is completely not under the control of an individual. If such situation happens, it is anomic suicide. So there are other examples I have given, because of the winning of the lottery, because of the divorce, because of the failure of love. These are the others example. Again, we can include the farmer suicide as an anomic suicide. Okay. You can go through the reading materials that I have provided you, go through that for the better understanding. Okay. So moving ahead to the last type of the suicide, that is fatalistic suicide. Fatalistic suicide takes place due to the over-regulation. Okay, high regulation and over-regulation. If the rules and regulations are too strict and impose very much extreme form, the fatalistic suicide may take place or may occur. So the example of the fatalistic suicides are suicide of a student due to exam pressure, and suicide committed by the prisoners in the jail. These are the examples given with related to fatalistic suicide. Okay, so that's all. I hope you are clear with the concepts, dear students. If you have any doubt, we can discuss in the next class. And please go through the reading materials to have a better understanding. Thank you.